Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon. How are you? I am Jenny Chapman, the Haas School Dean. Welcome to today's Dean Speaker Series. I am so delighted to introduce Ana Corrales, the COO for Google Consumer Hardware. Ana is an engineer by trade. She began her career at Hewlett-Packard and Cisco. She went on to found Sun Modular, a solar energy company, and was CEO for 4 years until the company was successfully acquired in 2010. Ana returned to Cisco, serving in leadership roles from worldwide global services to supply chain operations, and she later joined Alphabet in 2016 as Chief Financial and Operating Officer of Nest, my favorite product, actually.
Hey, we didn't talk about that.
Yeah, I know. I have a house in the mountains, and we can set the heat before we get there, which I love.
Yay.
Yay. She's now Chief Operating Officer for Google Consumer Hardware, leading development and supply chain for a broad range of products. Ana is a champion of sustainability initiatives, working to include recycled materials in all Google products, as well as serving on the 0100 Advisory Board. Ana has been recognized for her leadership in multiple ways. It would take all the time to name all of them, so I'm going to name just a few. She's on the Forbes CEO Next list. She's one of the 50 most powerful Latinas in business. She's one of Fortune's 25 most powerful rising executives. She's one of the most influential Latinos in 2022 by Bloomberg Linea. And she's listed in the Association of Latino Professionals for America, who named her as one of the most powerful Latinas. There are many more things, but I think we would like to hear from Ana herself. So thank you, Ana, for taking the time to come to Haas today and speak to our students.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So I have, yes, please. Some quick housekeeping, and I want to introduce our student panelists here. So you all have a note card on your seat. If you have a question now or any time during the conversation, just jot it down. And Sarah and Carrie are key people. We'll be picking them up. Just hand them to them, and we will we'll put them into our pile. I'm now going to turn it over to Cecilia Balternea and Chidera Osuji, who will lead today's discussion. They're both second-year MBA rock stars of ours, so thank you both for being on point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for setting that up, Dean Chapman. It's so exciting to have you here today, Ana. My name is Chidera. As the Dean mentioned, I'm a second-year student at Haas in the full-time MBA program. I'm found a winding path to Haas through different industries, including corporate law and urban design, before eventually coming here as a way to explore sustainability and supply chain, specifically in circularity. So I'm really excited to speak about some of your accomplishments over your course of your career today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Ana, my name is Cecilia Altranena. I'm also a full-time second-year MBA student. As a Latin woman aspiring to grow in tech, I am absolutely grateful and super excited to be here sharing stage with you today. I can't wait to hear all about your journey around the tech industry, your learnings, and major achievements in that.
Thank you. Thank you guys both for inviting me, and the team is super excited to be here. And I don't know, did we announce our goodies? We're in consumer, so we bring swag to events. Did we set that up already? Okay, perfect. So before you leave, definitely go in the back. There's some really cute things. So that's our little way of thanking you all for inviting us today.
Thank you so much, Ana. Ana, we would love to start this conversation talking about your journey in general. I mean, you've moved seamlessly from startups to Cisco to all the way to Google now, each with very different cultures and scales and different contexts that you've been into. But you've described in other forums your career as a process of elimination. Can you speak a little bit about that and what that means and how MBA students can actually apply that process of elimination thinking or mindset for their own careers.
Yeah, perfect. It's a great question. So first of all, I will just say that when you look at somebody, anyone in the industry or anybody that you might admire, you look at their LinkedIn or you look at a bio that somebody wrote and it seems seamless. And it's not that. I think everybody shows up with messy hair, sweat, blood, and tears. If they've done something that's really, worth it, they've worked very hard to get there, and it's not just a seamless coincidence that happens easily. The second thing I would say is that for me personally, I joke that you really should try to live life backwards, because I had very, very early indications, even when I was, a teenager, of what I wanted to do, but I hadn't been trained or I didn't really know how to listen to it. And so the reason I feel like I ended up doing, then how do you end up from there to subtraction is a super interesting thing. I had very easy signs, but because it came easy to me, I didn't recognize it. And so I ended up then just kind of following, what I thought were good paths. And I would try something. I'd be like, that was interesting. I always learned a lot. I love learning. But I was like, that's just not who I am. Like, maybe that's not what I want to do. And then I would try something else. And that definitely wasn't what I wanted to do. And I tried something else. And I liked that. And so I did a little more of that or a little twist on that. And so I think that's why it was elimination. I had a lot more X's than checks in my evaluation of the opportunities. But I would say if I had to do it backwards again, and you guys are in this super awesome stage of your life, so fun, by the way. It makes me just want to come back and get another degree being here. But it's the thing is that if you pay attention to what's easy for you, like what comes easy, what is natural, what gives you energy, you will hear a lot of things. I had a teeny company. We can talk about that more later. When I was 15, I ran it as a general manager. I made a lot of money. I was like a rich teenager in Costa Rica. And I should have heard that loud and clear that that's what I like doing. And I just had no idea. I should have, gone to engineering school immediately and done product and entrepreneurship. And instead, I didn't hear that so well. And so it took a big journey of subtracting a lot of things to end up where I was. So I hope that gives you some indication of how it came about. Yeah.
Was that the scrunchies?
It was. I've had the same hair, right? Like forever. Long, brown, whatever, boring. So anyway, but it's, it was, I made a ton of money. I had free cogs and lots of grandmas and moms with lots of time trying to help teenagers. So free labor. You're all MBAs. That's a great margin. So I did a great job there. Yeah.
Definitely did a great job. Thank you for sharing that story. And you spoke a little bit about ways of finding ease and what you enjoy doing in order to promote that process of elimination. On the other side, I'm sure that there have been challenges, specifically being a woman in a male-dominated industry. And so we were curious, from your own experiences, what have you seen as key challenges for women that women face in tech, and what mindsets or strategies have been most effective in navigating that environment for you?
Yeah, I have to say, I didn't really realize, I'm a foreigner, right? So I grew up in Costa Rica, so being Latin in Costa Rica is not that exciting. And so I didn't really realize that was a thing, and I didn't realize being a woman in engineering was a thing either, because my parents were both STEM people, and my mom's a biology PhD, and my dad is an engineer, and so they were like, you are going to be good at math, and that's just the way it's going to be. And so I just didn't know any better. And so I didn't really hit me until I went to grad school, because when I went to grad school, there was 150 people in my program, and we had 4 women in that program, 4 or 5. Like, it was like a super tiny minority, to the point where if one of us was sick, it was like super evident, right? And then I went into tech, and that was a bit of a wake-up call, because you would go into rooms, and by definition, you would naturally be the only person, the only female, let alone the only female Latina. And so that, it just sort of like the awareness hit me. which was very, very interesting. And so I would say, there's been challenges and pluses to that. The challenges have been that it is harder. I'm just going to be blunt. It is sort of harder to get your voice out and to be sort of heard in the same speed at other people. My dad has the saying, and he told me many times, he's like, if something's worth doing, at least do it with enthusiasm. Like, go do it for real. And I think you have to have that conviction, and you have to be able to be confident in what you're saying. It's like, no, do not interrupt me. And did you hear what I said? Because I think you're repeating it right about now. So I think having that conviction of what you're doing, that you're trying really hard, you're a good team player, but you do want to get your ideas out there is super important. For me personally, as a woman, something that became a superpower for me is after I had my daughter. I've always had a pretty intense personality, and so before I had my daughter, I just couldn't believe, like, how is this not the most singular, most important thing in your life right now, And then I realized, oh, actually, people have like this totally different and very robust life. And so I think that helped me a lot. And it's actually, I think, made my teams feel like I'm an approachable leader and that they can talk to me about pretty much everything. So much more approachable and understanding. Being a Latina for me was also, I think, a strength because it was pretty fun culture, to be honest, pretty jovial, pretty happy, sun side up, and then also very approachable as well. So I think on the overall, for me, it's been a blessing. But have there been days where I drove home, either in tears or furious, especially earlier on in my career? 100%. And I think now that you are, A, the demographic is changing, which is really cool. And B, I have, the ability to sort of pave that way or make sure that is a better experience for other people coming up as they grow their career is also a privilege to see that. And I think it's just gotten a lot better. So if I compare, here's the good news. If I compare to when I started to now, there's no comparison. It is so much better. Maybe not in every corner, but broadly speaking, that's true. Yeah, I mean, like I said, everybody's going to end up having big challenges as they navigate their career, and unfair moments and frustrating moments, and you got to just do it with conviction. If you want to do something important, you got to put a lot of effort and conviction in it.
Perfect. That's actually an excellent segue into the following question. We want to ask you, Anna, I know there's one of the hardest things that we as MBA students experience when trying to go into these industries or building something of our own is actually gaining access to the right networks and also inviting the right sponsors in the process. So could you speak a little bit about those access to those networks, your sponsors in the way, and what type of advice would you give us to create opportunities in that space, but also gather those important sponsors in the way?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I would say that it's interesting. It depends what you want to do, right? If you're about to go start your own company or your startup, or if you are joining a firm, right? You're joining a company as part of a larger team that already exists. What is true of both is that you want to sort of seek out people where you have a commonality. So like if you're going to open a company that, is making, I don't know, some consumer product, you want to go talk to people who have done that. If you're in a company already and you have a project assignment, you want to talk to people who've already walked those shoes. And pretty much everybody has walked, maybe not the exact shoes, especially if you're doing a novel startup, but something similar. Like, how do I set up my C Corp? Where do I do this? How do I get funding? How do I do well in the, and when I go to see the VCs on Sandhill, like, how do I do this project? How do I get, this team to do something that maybe they don't want to do and they're skeptical of doing, and maybe it's not the biggest priority. When you find that commonality, then that's where these people are helping you. They're in the project with you. Those people become mentors. Some of those will become sponsors. You can't have a sponsor that's not your mentor, but, but roughly speaking, they have to see your work and they have to see what you do. I'll be really honest, because I'm trying to give helpful advice. What's really awkward is when you have somebody who is working on nothing that relates to what you do, but, maybe they heard you on a chat or whatever, and they came, scheduled a one-on-one, and they just don't have an agenda. And you're like, I don't know what you're doing. I don't have any expertise that I can help you. And so it's like this awkward date, it's like the weird person in the lunch line that wants to talk to you. And you're like, I have no idea what to say to you. So I think it's super important that you be trying to do the homework and the research to get approximate to someone who actually has real advice on the topic, not just on you. And then the sort of marriage of those two is what's really, really powerful. In my particular case, I was assigned on a project when I got to Cisco with this VP who eventually had an amazing career. He became COO of all of Cisco. So I was super lucky, right? Just in the right aisle at the right time. But we worked on this project, and he got to see my work, and then eventually we sort of he was giving me direction and became, really a mentor for me, and then eventually became a sponsor and is a sponsor still today. But we had a lot in common because I was, kind of working for him really at that time. Yeah.
That's great to hear. I'm thinking about I love the analogy of an awkward date and having to do the research beforehand. And that actually leads us to kind of shift gears into the next topic of conversation, which has been your leadership journey at Google. And thinking about research, I'm curious, how do you approach future thinking and deciding what technologies or bets to pursue while balancing practicality and scale? And what frameworks or signals in that research guide you in identifying the ideas that deserve attention and deserve being developed?
It's a super question. First, I will just say that in what I do, it has been the craziest decade. Since 2020 and counting, it has been just one big, huge, unexpected thing after another. I joke that if we could have 6 weeks where something is consistent, where it's boring for 6 weeks, that would be fabulous. I have yet to hit that since 2020. I called both of my mentors at different times, one in 2020, one recently with the tariffs, and they were both like, kiddo, you're on your own. I have no idea, but God bless you. I hope you could do well, So it's been this very crazy time. So I think when I am thinking about what we do, there's two things that we're trying to do. One is, what are technologies that are just going to give us an edge? And we're at Google, of course, we're going to use AI. We've tried something in AI. It didn't work the first time we tried it. It didn't work the second time we tried it. 3 months later, it works great. So you can't just give up because you try once. You're like, try that, didn't work. The product is a totally different product, literally 3 months later or 6 months later or even shorter. So you have to be okay with the fact that you're going to break some eggs and it's going to be okay. And then the second one is you're to survive, not because it's interesting and a buzzword, but to survive, you're going to have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. It used to be you had a plan A, maybe you had a baby plan B, and that was it. Now you really have to have we're going to do this, and if that doesn't work, we'll do that, and if that doesn't work, we'll do that. And I got to tell you, we end up in plan C's quite a bit right now, just because of the macro environment that's happening. And so what are the things that will prepare us for those plans? Constraints are super useful because constraints will lead to innovation. So you're like, okay, well, we used to do this. That used to take 1.5 years. Now we got to do that in 3 months. What do we do? And so because we've been handed the gift of really big constraints recently, I feel like we're innovating a lot right now. And we're just trying and failing and trying and failing. And in many cases, when you see something that works, you're then just going to sort of run that play longer. But it's messy right now. It's not a beautiful strategy paper right now. It's pretty messy and kind of gritty. Yeah, you got to have a lot of grit right now. Yeah,
definitely. And I love I've heard you a few times in this conversation reframing things as blessings or gifts. Yeah. And I think that mindset is also really helpful right now. So it's great to hear.
Thank you.
You've overseen a million different, well, not million, but several different products at Google by now. You've seen Pixel, Nest, Fitbit, a couple of these. Can you speak to one of or the most important or some of the most successful initiatives that you've led there? Why were they so successful, and what was it that made them so successful?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we have managed a lot of the different products. So I went to Google I went to work for Nest. Then Nest became Alphabet, and then long story short, we ended up at Google. So there's two things that come immediately to mind. One is that if you know much about the Google culture, it's like 1,000 seeds, and then you see what flowers, and then you kind of pick those flowers. And we had so many flowers in consumer hardware and consumer in general. And so one of the things I'm super proud of is bringing all of those efforts together, because it required sunsetting a lot of them, fast forwarding some of them, changing a lot. So it's like a huge strategy project. It's very, very cool. And I'm super proud of that, because we had to lay a foundation from scratch to make that happen. And I had never gotten to do that. I think it's rare to get to do that. And it was been a huge privilege, because everything was from scratch. And one of the things that we did from absolute scratch was sustainability. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But there was, negative nothing. It was like, let's get out of the territory of negative into at least not being, having a program. And so, our first leader in sustainability is Anna, who still runs, she still runs the whole program for us. And I'm really proud that we went from nothing to leading in many areas, like repairability, plastic packaging, many things that required a lot of innovation to do that. And so those are the two things I'm super proud of as I look back and the last 9 years that we've been at this.
Yeah, I'm curious if you could share a story as we talk kind of about the theme of, you've mentioned in the past, running towards the fire, when challenges arise. If you could share a time when there was an ambiguous or high-stakes situation as COO, I'm sure that happens a lot, and how you built trust and alignment with your teams to navigate that uncertainty.
I think I love my job, because my job is always that. My job is always completely fluid. There's no 2 days that are the same. And I could give you, like that happened today, it happened yesterday. I can give you a million examples, but I'll just pick on a fun one because it's popular right now, like tariffs, right? So you have okay, we're going to do this plan. And so you're like, well, how do you decide? Like, what are you going to do? And if you make these decisions, are they one-way doors or two-way doors? And how do we do that? And so you literally, all of you guys work on this. It's real physics. Like you can't just this is not software, Software can't fix your, pinched tire. And so there are real things you need to do, and it's just been so fluid. It literally is crazy. We have had more models about tariffs. We're here in November. We're, I think, in model 470 something. So at least more than once a day for a year of what our plan would be. Think how taxing that is. It's crazy. And so that's where you have to exercise a lot of muscles, right? You have to take a lot of risk taking, a lot of decision making. You can't pivot the teams once a day. You're not going to get anything done if you do that. So you have to sort of decide, okay, well, I think we're going to go in this general direction, and we'll be able to kind of maneuver here or slightly here, depending on that. But we're definitely exiting these two options. It's like game theory. It's pretty fun, but it's chaotic a little bit. So that's one great example. The other great example of that is, you're about to launch a product and you find out an issue, and it's like you have to figure out the calculus of, okay, well, how bad is this issue? Can we fix it later? Do I really feel proud of the product? And it's so interesting. They're really complicated. But at the end of the day, there's that simplicity of you have to focus on a user. You might buy this product, and are you going to feel happy with it? And am I going to go to a birthday party for my son and run into you and you're like, hey, by the way, I have all kinds of comments on that thermostat, or I have all these kinds of comments on your phone. Birthday parties for me are tech support, basically. And it's so easy when something feels so complicated. At the end of the day, there's like a beautiful simplicity of here's the user and do you feel proud? Like if this was your friend or your parents or your family member, would you feel proud to say like, yeah, this product's ready? And you get to make that call, right? We get to decide, like I get to decide, like, is this, okay, let's ship it. And boy, when that thing hits the wild, it's gone. And so you're always sort of swallowing hard on those moments. But not everybody agrees. And people are like, that's terrible. That's not, or like you're being too conservative or you're not being conservative enough. It is possible to get accused of both of those things on the same issue in the same minute. And so, you just have to use the best judgment you have. But yeah, it's definitely, you're never going to have 100% of people agreeing on something. It's too complicated for that. So you're going to have to make a call.
Anna, that is exactly what we want to ask next. We want to dive into the sustainability portion of what you've done and the type of initiatives you've led at Google with sustainability. And so we want to know what's the biggest learning in this process, but also tying to what you just said right now, what have been the major sources of resistance within that scope that have been hard to maintain or follow or overcome?
Yeah, I think we first started doing sustainability before it was like the obvious thing. And isn't that true of so many things? Like you start something and people tell you you're crazy or it's too expensive or it's going to just take too much time. And then eventually, after getting yelled at for 9 months, eventually it becomes popular. They're like, oh, you've done such a great job. And it's so great that you guys are so advanced. So it's very interesting how it comes kind of in vogue and out of vogue. And you just got to stay the course regardless of that. But I think for sustainability, the biggest learning we've had is that, and this, maybe it's obvious to you guys, you're very smart people, but it's not super obvious to most people, is that sustainability is all about innovation. Because unless you innovate, you're not going to get it to be where it needs to be for the product to be mass produced. So it is not about option A is better than option B for the planet, and option A is more expensive. So now I got to just go tell all the finance people, that convince them that option A is the right thing to do. The reality is that you kind of need an option 8.5. You're going to have to do the innovation and the mathematics to back it up. And that requires, literally in our case, and this is the team who's done it, so I can't take any credit for it, but they're innovating with material science, or they're innovating in, I want to get rid of all plastic in packaging. That sounds super easy, right? Actually, it's not. It's actually very hard. It's very easy to take a few parts out of it, but it's very hard to make it 100%. To go from 90, 95 to 100%, it's extremely hard and requires a lot of innovation. So there's no template. It's not like you're like, I'm in this company that's not sustainable, so therefore I'm going to go pick these 3 things up and then we'll make a huge progress. It's going to require, in our case, to create a new yarn from plastic bottles, or to create, new tabs of, that were used to be plastic in a totally different material. And oh, by the way, you have never seen so many opinionated people about what color is your box and what, how does it weigh and how does it feel? And I mean, outrageous debates about these things, because when you go to, say, a Best Buy or you go on Amazon or something like that, they're going to show you a picture of it. And whether we know it or not, people like shiny things. This is why, beauty and jewelry always has beautiful packaging, because you're going to go buy the same cologne in a beautiful packaging and pay twice as much. And so these are really heated debates, and there is no template, and it requires constant innovation. And I think I don't think people associate sustainability with the level of innovation it requires for it to be successful if you want it in every single product, right? And so that's really fun. It's a fun project to work on.
Yeah, I really appreciate that overview, because I think sometimes in the spirit of innovation, there's often a lot of inherent or implicit competitiveness that comes out
Yes.
of that. And it's becoming more and more clear that instead of competitiveness, there's going to have to be a lot of collaboration for
Yes.
sustainability to really drive impact. And so I'm curious if you can share about a partnership that has been transformative for Google, for Google's environmental goals, and what advice you would give to companies or entrepreneurs who are trying to move past competitive instincts in order to have collective progress.
I want to give a shout out to David Bourne, who's here. So now is your time to wave. He is a person who's working exactly at this intersection of, look, there are things we do where we want to be competitive, right? You know, I would prefer that you buy a Nest thermostat than something else. I would prefer that you have an Android phone than an iPhone, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, when it comes to the planet and when it comes to sustainability, there's only one planet. And the scalability is completely multiplied by volume. So if we are all doing something, it will be way better and less costly to put it in your product. So, you know, some of the partnerships, for example, that David has worked on is Chem Forward, right? How do you deal with all the chemistry and all of the pollutants that happen? And if we can all work together and have programs to do that for the industry, we will be much better off. So this is something that he started, and it got a huge amount of recognition because it was, you know, really us collaborating with our competitors to do that. And, you know, we got to a point, I just told you how hard it was to get to plastic-free packaging. So much work. It would have been very easy to say, well, let's just keep that because that's like, isn't that an awesome marketing claim? Like, let's just keep it to ourselves. But instead, we sort of opened it up to the entire industry because the reality is we want everybody to do that. And so these are just a couple of examples. And what I would say is interesting, and I think this is probably true in most industries, is that you are competitors, but you're also collaborators. And that's always been true. And you have to sort of pick what are the things you're going to be in each case. Like, yeah, we're not going to give you our industrial design, which, by the way, other people copied right after. But we are going to give you, all the best practices on how to do Chem Forward or how to do, plastic-free packaging or how to do a repairable watch and get that to be the most repairable watch in the world. So those are things that we are trying to share because we believe that volume and just overall industry going in that direction will make it better for who? For the user, which is the person that matters the most. And I think users care. I do think they really do care about it. So that's our point of view anyway. Yeah.
And many of us will enter organizations, hopefully,
I'm sure you will.
where this sustainability is not a strategic priority. And so how do we navigate that environment where it's hard to really convince someone that this is worth doing and it has its impact and it requires cost and effort and innovation to actually do it? So what are some ways we, from wherever we're standing in a company, can contribute to this in that way and contribute to that process?
I mean, I will go back to whatever company you're in, learn the user, learn why this matters to the user. And I think it would be hard pressed to understand where that wouldn't apply. I'm not sure of every single industry, but I would say in most industries, they're definitely going to care about that. And I think the wind is in our favor right now in that people are sort of seeing that this is important. Despite some, regulatory changes that are happening, I think overall, the value of that to a brand is pretty clear. And it's measurable. And it wasn't measurable, 5 years ago. You couldn't really measure that. But now you'll take a focus group or you'll take an A/B test and you will see, look, in our Google store, I can message something one way or message it another way, and that A/B test will 100% demonstrate that people care about this issue. And so I think follow the user, follow the research, follow the data. And, the other thing that I will tell you is start with small pilots, because small pilots are awesome because they cost no money. And if they fail, no one notices. And if it goes well, it's like the spark that all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, if that happens, well, why is this true and why is that true? You don't need like this massive program, to launch something that's going to make a big difference. And so we started with a lot of pilots. And even even we are super focused on sustainability. There were definitely initiatives where our team would say, hey, what about this? And there wasn't support for it at the time. And we just did a teeny pilot, and it was a great success. And then people really got behind it. So again, you can start small with an idea and sort of let that spark the rest. But I do think the wins are in our, as you guys go to all your great futures that you're going to do and all these great places that you're going to work in and the creations and the innovations you're going to drive, I think you'll feel much more support than, say, 5 or 10 years ago, for sure.
On a similar thread, I'm curious, as you have seen some of these pilot initiatives scale, what any of the most surprising challenges or unintended consequences have been? Maybe like a sample story. I imagine, especially in this era of uncertainty where even your sponsors and mentors can't necessarily support in the way that they used to.
Very lonely. Yeah.
What does that look like?
We were just talking about this on the way here, actually, because we were saying, you do a pilot, and so you get something that works great in, copies of 1,000, and then you're trying to get it to 1 million, and that was like a big climb, and then it falls apart when you're trying to get to like 5 or 10 million. And so that was really surprising for us, because we're like, I made a cookie, I most certainly can make 1 million cookies. Well, it turns out that's not always true. And so you have to sort of reformulate the original cookie to basically make it to the other ones. And we were really surprised by that. I don't know, maybe why we were surprised, because we were surprised multiple times on the same thing, but it just feels like it could scale linearly, and it just didn't. And so actually some of these industry collaborations is because of that. It's because it didn't really sort of get to the linear basis that you were expecting. So I would say in terms of surprise, that was like really surprising for us. We felt like once you got this one, you got it. And there was still more innovation to be done and reformulation. Yeah.
Sounds like iteration happens at every phase, not just in the initial concept design.
Yeah, which we should know, because we do products, and products are never finished, like ever. Like now I have this awful habit of, like, if I see a product, I will like see the 3 things that we didn't do or that I want to do. And anyway, products are never finished ever. And people are so happy with it. And you're like, yes, it's awesome, except for that little corner. Like, it's just really funny. It's like a little, it's a bad work habit. Yeah.
Well, I'm learning again and again, especially in this program, that some life lessons are learned over and over and over
again. Yeah, I guess that's true. That is true. Very true, yeah.
Anna, we like to close our Dean Speaker series with a question that we ask every speaker.
Okay.
It's meant to be a reflection of more of your personal life and end on a personal note here. So the question is, if you had one more week in a year in your life, what would you do in that week?
That's super easy for me. I'd go back to Costa Rica and spend time with my mom. I miss home. I love the ocean, and I definitely want to spend as much time as I can with my mom. And that's definitely what I would do. No email. I love water. I do my best thinking in water, whether that's shower, ocean, whatever, swimming. No surprise, there's no devices in that, I think, which is an interesting insight. But I really do. Like, I just think better there, and I just love being with her. So that's what I would do.
Thank you so much, Anna.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Anna. Though I am hoping I'm a swimmer, I am hoping for some waterproof earbuds
See,
at
I
some
have
point.
all kinds of thoughts on that.
Yeah, good. All right, we should talk about that. So I have some fantastic questions from the audience. We have so many that I'm not going to be able to ask all of them, but let's take a shot.
Okay.
The first one, very straightforward. Where do you see the direction of consumer hardware going in the next 3 to 5 years?
It's going to be completely blended with AI, because it's going to be about making it useful for you every day. Today, it's very reactive. It's about making it proactive with AI. No question. 100%.
Very cool. Okay. Like a lightning round. Okay. How has, this one I think is super interesting. How has your role as COO changed over time? Specifically, COO of a 4-person company looks so different from your role as COO at Google. So curious to understand what a COO owns in their role and how that changes as the company grows.
Such a great question. It changes a lot, but I would say how I approach my job every day is I wake up thinking, look, if you were, like, let's say you cut it out, right, and it was its own little company startup, you would have somebody trying to raise money, talking to sales, talking externally, talking about the product, and then you would very likely have somebody internally kind of running the day-to-day and making sure everything's happening. Trains are on time, products are on time, things are on time, we're hitting budgets, we're hitting timelines, we're hitting product quality, we're launching products. That's what I do. So I feel like my job is making sure that I'm running the company internally. And at Google, we are basically organized through product areas, which are sort of divisions, let's say. And so I feel like for our division, that is my job. My job is to make sure that we are hitting every commitment, we're making the products, we're hitting that. And that can mean any, I get thrown problems that are not even in my zip code, but I just have to do them because they need to get done for us to be successful. So that's sort of how I approach my job. And it is super different working in a startup. I've worked from companies that have, like my own company with my sister was like maybe 15 people at the peak. And now it's like, tens of thousands. So it's just so different. But at the end of the day, it's still the same thing. Like, are you basically hitting what you need to do for your company to be successful?
Great. Here's one about sustainability. As a leader in sustainability, what advice would you give an undergraduate student looking to break into and make a difference in corporate environmental progress?
If the question is how to make the corporation make more progress or how to get to the corporation. So I'll try to answer both. I think in terms of getting a job in sustainability, I will just say it's very popular right now. So just like you guys all got selected to a very low admittance rate program, that is very similar to that. And the best way to do it is to have programs or projects that you participated in that are that are relating to the work that we do, so that you can show some skill and some experience in that through internships or through projects in the school, for sure. Not just academic, but really practical experience makes a huge difference. And then once you're inside the company, you really want to be able to be in, ideally, the ideal situation is you are in these sustainability teams that have the mandate to make big changes. I personally, there's sustainability programs and everything, right? Like, do we use plastic forks or recyclable forks, or better forks in the cafeteria? Like, you can do sustainability in anything. Personally, of course, I'm super partial to the ones that relate to the product that the company is shipping. And I think those are the most fun because they will get the biggest attention, the biggest budget. And at the end of the day, you're changing what somebody holds in their hand every day and uses every day. And I just think that's so cool. So anyway, I hope that answers that.
Great, thank you. So this person says, thanks for being here. We usually see leaders like you as having life professionally and personally solved. What are some challenges you are going through today? What do you struggle with?
Oh my gosh, definitely let me debunk that myth right now. I don't think just like products are never finished, I think careers and people are never finished. You're always learning, you're always getting better. But like my challenges today, I'll just pick a few because I have quite a few. Number one, pretty tired right now because I've been traveling a lot. I'm leaving tonight for New York. We had an emergency meeting just before this that made us kind of really worried that we were going to be late for this. So it's always like, the volume under the curve of work is way higher than you can do in any day. And even if I work 24/7, I could never get to all of it. And so priorities are a really big thing. So that's definitely one big challenge. The other one, we talked a little bit about this, right? You're a daughter, you're a mother, you're a wife, you're trying to do your job. There's just so many things that you have to do sort of every day. And how do you balance your personal life and how do you balance your health? Like I didn't really grow up in a country where sport was a big deal. And I paid for it. And so in my 20s, I would get sick all the time. And then when I got to my 30s, I realized, I really need to work on this. And so it's changed my life completely in terms of how I approach it. But those are some of them. And then work challenges are like product issues right now, budget issues. I mean, it's just like you name them. There's so many. So don't ever think, this is what I was telling you. Like, don't ever go on LinkedIn and see someone and say, like, oh, this person just was picking flowers all the way to whatever they did. No one did that. No one. Not even like the founder. So I know their story really well. They didn't either. So there's always going to be a productive struggle to get to any destination.
Thank you. So as someone who also started their first company as an early teen, I'm curious what shifted you from entrepreneurship to such a large title as COO and for a large company, and how do you keep that intimate management and building for consumers alive?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have this very peculiar pattern where I will go to like a small company, and then I'll go to a big company, and then I would do small companies and big companies, and it's like this TikTok that I was not planned at all. I'm a super social person, so like when we had the startup with my sister, there was like, at that time, there was like 10 to 15 of us. We would go to lunch all the time together. And after a while, right, like everybody's heard everybody's story. And I remember after lunch one time, I told my sister, I'm like, oh my God, if I hear that one story one more time, I'm going to jump out the window, And I sort of realized like I really wanted to go to a bigger place at that time. It didn't end up working out. We sold it. Anyway, I had to like do that. But after I wanted to go back to sort of like a big company and a big team because it's so fun and you can do so many different things. And the problems are so big, and then I love that, and then it would get a little bit routine, or what's the word in English, like with bureaucracy, and I was like, oh, I can't handle that. I'm going back to startup land, where you can go to Sand Hill and buy toilet paper on the way back in the same day, and so I sort of was doing that TikTok, and this job has been the longest job I've been in. And I think the reason it's worked, it's because it's been changing so much. And it was a startup. It was nothing. And we created a lot of really valuable things and products that people love every day. And that's such an inspiration to me. And I mean, it's really a privilege to be able to do that. Like one of my good friends is a dean of Harvey Mudd, and I went to her office. And the first time I ever met her, and she had 7 of my products, and like just randomly, like she was just using them. And I'm like, oh my God, we are gonna be best friends, So anyway, it's just super fun to see people use your stuff every day.
That's hilarious. So you've said you've had to speak up and stick to your ideas. However, many times women are judged for being too assertive. I actually wrote a paper on this. How do you navigate?
I want to read that.
Yeah, well, you probably don't, but super boring. But it's an academic paper, but I'm happy to share it. How do you navigate these forces?
I mean, look, you just have to have conviction in what you're saying. That doesn't mean you're right, by the way. But you do have to have conviction in what you're doing. And so I just like, I don't know, like I'm not interested in being obedient particularly. I'm not going to be unruly and a bad team player, and I don't need to be a jerk. Like you can say it very nicely, and you can say it in a way that it's very clear that it's not about you, that it's about the team or it's about the product. But if you believe something, you got to stick to it. And I feel like I get tested a lot on that because we have to make decisions and trade-offs all day long. And I mean, like I said, I've been in meetings that stakes were really high, and people are like, you're not being conservative enough, and other people are like, you're being, too much of this or not enough of that, and you sort of have to hold your ground. And like anything, it's like the more you practice, the easier it gets, and if people know that you have integrity and people know that you are about trying to make the best decision for the team or the best decision for the product, it is not about your ego. It is not about you. It's not about your team. It's not about you being right either. I think people will give you a lot more leeway. And especially as you prove that over time, then the next time you speak up, people won't even question your motive because they trust you. And they say decisions travel at the speed of the trust between the two people making the decision. And I feel that every day. Like after a while, you've earned your stripes and people know that it's really, you're just trying to make the right decision for the product. And then it's okay for you to stick to your decision. And trust me, there's been times when I pretty emphatically have had to fight something where I'm like, no, like, over my dead body, that is not shipping, and it's just not. And, you can go call God if you want, it's still not shipping. So you have to have that moxie, I guess, to sort of, but it doesn't build, you're not born that way, obviously, right? You just practice. Yeah.
Great advice.
I should do it for running. I'd be in a lot better shape, but anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is God available by phone?
I know, right?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So this is actually the last question. You did such a great job of getting through these. Being first to discover, to invent, or to go public doesn't always lead to lasting success.
True.
What's your personal strategy for observing, waiting, and acting at the right moment in a way that ultimately brings you appreciation and reward in life? And this is from an EW MBA, Jonathan Chen.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jonathan. I would say I have two thoughts that triggered with that question. One of them is that 100% if you make your own company and you're first to market does not mean you're going to be successful. This was a huge learning for me because I told you I grew up in a complete STEM family. I didn't meet a marketing person or a salesperson until I was 30. And I totally thought, like, if the hard thing is to build the product, and like, how hard is it to do those things? And it turns out it's super hard. And I really had very little appreciation for it until I was 30. And so one thing is to learn those disciplines because, if you go to a startup, like, what are the top 7 jobs that you need to do to make that startup work? And like, do you understand what they do? And if you don't, like, spend some amount of time trying to like learn it because it's very, 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 very humbling. I never knew sales was hard. I never knew marketing was hard. I never knew marketing was so quant. Like, I just didn't know that. So that's one piece of advice. And the biggest piece of advice I would give you is, I'm like a busybody, is probably pretty clear. And I love doing things, and I love a million balls up in the air. And so like the biggest change I have made as I matured in my career, and this was very hard then and it's very hard now, is to sort of go slower. And we talk about it as white space, which is like go for a walk or block 2 hours. And it can't be a 15-minute thing. Like, it has to be a long time where you sort of ramp down and you have time to really think. And again, like I said, this happens to me a lot when I'm swimming. And I will get out of the pool with like a totally different recombination of ideas or thoughts or conclusions that I didn't have before. And I didn't do that in my 20s at all. I was just so busy. I don't know why I was so busy, but I was so busy. I can't remember, but I was really busy. And so I feel like as I hit my 30s, I started to play with this a little bit more. And you were asking about the question of when do you wait and hold and observe. And I think people who do that, who listen very actively and watch, have a huge advantage because the rest of us are too busy like thinking or doing or talking. And I've tried to really incorporate that into my repertoire, and it's made a massive difference in everything, in my personal life, in my professional life. And I really strongly encourage you to do that because otherwise you will miss really obvious things. For example, you probably have 2 or 3 talents that are super easy for you, and you're too busy to notice them because they're so easy, they're effortless. And I should have known at 15 or 16 that I was going to be a product person. But no, it took me, 15 additional years to sort of get to that conclusion because I was too busy to notice something that should have been obvious. So I think this white space is crucial, and it's made a huge difference to me. And I hope you employ it too, especially as you decide what you want to do next. It's really important to hear. You're at a really important time in your life, so it's really important to kind of hear yourself out, and not just be super busy doing whatever you think is next.
Well, thank you, Anna. We have 4 defining leadership principles here at the Haas School of Business. You hit all of them: question the status quo, students always, beyond yourself. But I think the one that has struck me most as you've been talking today is confidence without attitude. You are a leader who has amassed an incredible career path and has accomplished so very, very much, and yet you seem completely approachable and kind and hilarious.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
I think this is what I admire most in leaders. So thank you for coming
Thank you
here
so much
and
for that
sharing
comment.
with our students your deep insights.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.